The story of the abuse of power in Atlantis, wisdom and consciousness. Once upon a time, there was an ancient land called Atlantis, a place of elegance, evolution, and creative abundance, where a group of highly advanced souls were beginning to radically explore the boundaries of human understanding. Atlantis. Free thinkers. Discovery. Breakthrough. It was a time in Earth's history when the energies were naturally moving into a more masculine polarity. However, the civilization in Atlantis marked the first time that humankind had experienced one of these earthly cycles. Little did they know that the shift from one polarity to the other was a natural and harmonious wave of energy. This wave contained the opportunity to know and embody the divine masculine principles, to know the truth of God and the laws of his universe. Within Atlantis, men and women who leaned more toward the masculine principle were entering a phase of development that was truly uncharted. There seemed to be a tremendous evolutionary spirit soaring through the fields of science, math, and both the universal and biological laws of creation. The groups involved in these pursuits were consumed with a spiritual fire that began to sustain them from the inside. There was almost no need to sleep, eat, or do anything else, as their passion for radical thinking and experimentation was all that they lived for. It was as if they had tapped into a new power that the rest of Atlantis had yet to discover. As time passed, this hunger for more and more wild experimentation took root and grew. Unbalanced work raised concerns, lacking oversight. From within the main scientific groups, radical offshoots were springing up in an attempt to take the experimentation to the next quantum level. Often, without permission, these groups would simply take it upon themselves to fund and oversee their work by trial and error until their vision succeeded in reality. Doubts and fears were beginning to rise from within the greater communities of Atlantis. People gathered behind dosed doors as they whispered their concerns and feelings of unease. The people wanted to know what exactly was going on within the walls of these laboratories, where no one seemed to be overseeing the progress of these now highly secretive and powerful groups of scientists. The feminine principle in Atlantis, representing the people who worked with the land and found their spirituality within the elements of nature, began to look upon the masculine principle with a sense of dread and foreboding. She noticed how these people were abandoning their love for Earth and discarding their nature-based spirituality for what they were calling a new form of spirituality, science. These scientists were declaring that they were listening to the voice of God and that they had become his special spokespeople. They declared that the old spiritual way where everyone was equal and able to speak and listen to God no longer existed. God can no longer be found within nature. God can now only be found within science. It is God that is leading this experimentation. He has appointed us as his priests to speak and act on his behalf, was the voice of the masculine. These radical freethinkers were introducing a new form of spirituality, and for the first time in human history, the idea of a spiritual hierarchy was born on Earth. This new religion stated that God could no longer be accessed through the old ways, and that if you wanted to connect with him, you would have to go through a priest of Atlantis. Atlantis reeled, divided, as unrest surged, a stark gender split. This increased the growing distrust and rampant fear, because the very essence of the feminine principle was being questioned at a fundamental level. Those who carried the feminine principle within their hearts were being challenged to prove the need or place for the existence of the feminine in this brave new world that was being born. It was a frightening time. Dark clouds were beginning to gather as the masculine principle began to depart from its original balance and reach distorted and destructive levels of power. Refusing to listen to the growing concerns of the people, the masculine turned his back and returned to his work, where he now admitted that in many ways he was playing God. Rumors spread like wildfire through the streets and homes of Atlantis. There were stories of how mutant babies were being born, who were half human and half animal, and how they were attempting to bend the laws of nature to produce a fifth element. There was also talk of a brand new power being created that was being produced as a result of creating mini black holes and then exploding them. This news created a deep-seated fear within the feminine, as she knew these types of experimentation should not be happening. These scientific experiments were acutely dangerous and had the power to destroy the whole of Atlantis and possibly the entire Earth. And yet, when it came to voicing her opinion, The feminine found that the scientific evidence and clever calculating responses from the masculine undermined and humiliated her concerns. Woman, you're useless. Your power is gone now. Leave now. Silence. Her defiance met scornful laughter. This open mockery left her feeling powerless and without expression. She attempted again and again to look for ways into the heart of the masculine, with the hope that he would see sense and stop his misuse of power. The more she came forward, the stronger and more arrogant he became. Over time, she became silenced, and in many ways seen as infertile, menopausal, and not needed anymore. Atlantis folk blindly gave power to priests. Only a handful of people stayed true to the feminine and kept her ways alive. This handful of people powerlessly looked on, totally unable to speak of their concerns, because no one was willing to listen to them. The people of Atlantis had become blind to the power that was manipulating them, imagining it to be the voice of this glorious new evolutionary spirit that promised the earth in more ways than one. The feminine principle could see the distortion and the corruption, but she was unable to do anything about it, while the masculine basked in his own egoic glory. The feminine principle sank to an all-time low, while the masculine spirit soared to dizzying and macabre new heights. Atlantis was fast becoming a circus, a spectacle of twisted and wretched abuses of power and manipulation. This once glorious land had become a hotbed of corruption and arrogance, a land of self-appointed demigods who had developed a bloodlust for their own glory. For the healing and transformation of this soul wound, it is important to enter into the story and feel how it touches you and unfolds inside you. This wound lives within the boundaries of the mind, the consciousness in both men and women. It is the guardian that stands before you, suggesting the need and desire to protect yourself from the abuse of power. From the masculine principle, it is important to remember that men can feel this wound if their women have a strong masculine side. As you move toward full conscious union, this will be the main wound that resurfaces. There will be myriad reasons that come up as to why it's wise to protect yourself, to not share your inner world, to not give the whole truth. Be aware that the flavor of this wound orbits around distrust, suspicion, and the inability to speak out or confront obvious corruption and distortion. There is a feeling that only you can see the truth, and that everyone else is either blind or in denial. Fear of authority or a strong, aggressive masculine energy are the ramifications of this wound. These wounds from the abuse of power and feminine disempowerment are still painfully alive today. With this story of the original cause, we are being given the keys to heal this injury at its creation, so that the waves of healing have the ability to travel both forward into the forward, present day, and back into the past, thus healing the root cause. Like, share, subscribe. One love.